Before we begin, if you believe that love can survive even the worst storms, then make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because the story you're about to hear might change the way you see relationships forever. Now, let's get into it. Daniel Hart never imagined that a simple argument would lead him into one of the longest nights of his life. It had started like any other evening, but somewhere between a few careless words and a silence that grew too loud, everything fell apart. The rain came down in sharp, icy sheets as Daniel gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles pale from tension. The narrow Vermont road stretched endlessly ahead, barely visible through the fog that clung stubbornly to the windshield. His breath was uneven, his thoughts even worse. He kept replaying the argument with Emily over and over and over again. At first, it had seemed small, almost trivial, a disagreement about something ordinary, something that shouldn't have mattered. But then, tones shifted, words sharpened, and suddenly, it wasn't about that small thing anymore. It became about everything. Why don't you ever listen to me? That sentence echoed the loudest, not because of how it was said, but because of what it meant. Daniel exhaled slowly, his chest tightening as regret crept in. He couldn't even remember the exact moment things spiraled out of control. All he knew was that he had walked out, not calmly, not rationally, but emotionally. And now, sitting alone in his car, surrounded by a storm that refused to calm, he realized something unsettling. Running away hadn't solved anything. It had only made everything heavier. The road became more dangerous with every passing minute. Ice formed along the edges. The tires slipped more than once. Visibility dropped, and the heater barely working. Daniel pulled over for the third time, pressing his forehead against the steering wheel as he tried to steady his breathing. This isn't safe, he muttered to himself. He was right. He couldn't keep driving like this. Not tonight. Not in this condition, physically or emotionally. That's when one thought surfaced. A place, a person. Margaret. His mother. Law. It wasn't the first place most people would go after fighting with their spouse, but Margaret was different. She had always been calm. Understanding. The kind of person who listened, really listened, without rushing to judge. And right now, Daniel needed that more than anything. Still, hesitation lingered. Would she ask questions? Would she take Emily's side? Would this make things worse? Another gust of wind rocked the car slightly. Decision made. He started the engine again and turned toward her cabin. The drive felt longer than it actually was. Every second stretched, every thought weighed him down further. But eventually, through the fog and darkness, a faint glow appeared in the distance. The cabin, warm light spilled from the windows, cutting through the cold night like a quiet promise of safety. Daniel parked, stepping out into the freezing rain. Within seconds, he was drenched. He barely made it to the door before it opened. Margaret stood there, her silver hair neatly tucked behind her ears, her eyes widening instantly with concern. Daniel. She didn't ask anything else. She didn't need to. One look at him told her everything. Without hesitation, she stepped aside and guided him in. The warmth of the cabin wrapped around him immediately. The crackling fireplace, the soft scent of lavender, the quiet comfort of a place untouched by chaos. Daniel exhaled deeply. For the first time that night, his shoulders dropped slightly. Margaret said gently, guiding him toward the fire. He didn't argue, didn't resist, didn't pretend. He sat and finally allowed himself to feel how exhausted he truly was. Between uneven breaths, he explained. Not perfectly, not in order, but honestly. The argument, the storm, the frustration, the confusion. The fear. Margaret listened. Silently. Patiently. Her expression soft but attentive. When he finished, she placed a hand on his shoulder. Simple. Steady. Reassuring. You did the right thing coming here, she said quietly. Sometimes distance is better than damage. Those words settled deep within him. For a moment, everything felt still. Safe. Manageable. But that peace didn't last long. A few minutes later, Margaret returned from down the hallway, her expression slightly troubled. The guest room. She began, pausing. "It's not ready." Daniel frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" "It's under renovation," she explained. "And the couch. It broke last week." Silence followed, a brief, awkward kind. "There's nowhere else to sleep," she added gently. Then, after a small pause, "You'll have to take my room." Daniel blinked. "That's not necessary." "I can just—" "No," she interrupted softly, but firmly. "You're freezing. And you need rest." He hesitated. "This doesn't feel right." Margaret smiled faintly. "You're like a son to me." "Daniel," her voice softened even more, "I won't let you sit out here suffering when there's a warm bed upstairs." There was no arguing with that. Not really. Reluctantly, he nodded. The room upstairs was simple. Cozy. Dimly lit by a single lamp and faintly scented with lavender. Just like the rest of the house, Daniel sat at the edge of the bed, stiff and uncertain. Margaret calmly arranged extra pillows between them, creating a clear boundary, treating the situation as nothing more than what it was. An emergency. Still, tension lingered in Daniel's posture. His thoughts were loud again. Margaret noticed. "Of course she did. You look like you're carrying too much," she said gently. Something about her tone. It broke through his defenses, and suddenly, he started talking again, not just about the argument, but about everything leading up to it. The distance, the silence, the unspoken worries. "We haven't been the same for months," he admitted. "I just didn't know how to fix it." Margaret listened. No judgment. No interruption. "Relationships don't fall apart in one night," she said quietly. "They drift slowly when people stop sharing what's inside them." Her words hit harder than he expected. As the storm raged outside, inside that room, something shifted. Daniel realized something important. This wasn't about anger. It never was. It was about fear. Fear of not being enough, fear of losing connection, fear of saying the wrong thing and making it worse. Hours passed. The storm continued, but Daniel felt lighter. Clearer. Until a knock at the door. Sharp. Unexpected. Daniel froze. Margaret looked toward the hallway, then back at him. "I think you know who that is." His heart pounded. "Emily." Margaret opened the door, and there she was. Soaked. Shivering. Her eyes red, filled with emotion. The moment Daniel saw her, everything inside him collided. Relief. Guilt. Love. She stepped inside slowly. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Margaret gave them both a knowing look, then quietly stepped away, leaving them alone. The fire crackled softly behind them. And for the first time in months, they talked. Really talked. Emily spoke about her fears, her insecurities, her feeling that she wasn't enough. Daniel listened without interrupting. Without defending. Then he spoke about his fears. His confusion, his worrying that he was losing her. And suddenly, everything made sense. The argument wasn't about the surface issue. It was about everything they had been afraid to say. By morning, the storm had softened. Daniel sat quietly on the sofa, watching Emily sleep peacefully for the first time in what felt like forever. He smiled slightly. Maybe things weren't broken after all. Maybe they just needed honesty. Outside, the rain slowed to a gentle drizzle. Emily joined him soon after. Together, they stepped outside. Hand in hand. No grand speeches. No dramatic promises. Just small, honest words. "I'll try harder. I'll listen more. I won't keep things inside." And somehow, that was enough. From the doorway, Margaret watched quietly, a soft smile forming on her face. She knew something they were only beginning to understand. Love doesn't avoid storms. It survives them when both people choose to face them together. As Daniel and Emily left the cabin, the sun finally broke through the clouds. And for the first time in a long time, their future felt warm again. If this story made you think differently about love, relationships, or communication, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, because sometimes the stories we hear are the lessons we didn't know we needed.